Attention, seniors. Waking up tired isn't normal aging. It's a warning sign that your body no longer feels safe enough to stay asleep. Fix the signal, not the symptom, and deep sleep can return naturally. I've seen this pattern for decades. Intelligent, disciplined people doing everything right. They take melatonin faithfully. They go to bed on time, and yet the night fractures. Sleep becomes shallow. The mind wakes too early. The body never fully restores itself. And quietly, night after night, exhaustion accumulates. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Needing melatonin every night is not a solution. It's a signal that the body's internal sleep communication system is no longer working the way it should. We've been taught to think of sleep like a switch. Flip it on with a pill, knock the brain out, force rest. But the aging body doesn't work that way. In fact, one of the wisest physicians of the last century, Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, warned about this exact mistake. He believed deeply that the body is designed to self-regulate when given the right conditions, not when it's overridden. He used to say, "Sleep is like a tide. It must be guided by the moon, not pushed by hand." That metaphor matters more after 60 than at any other time in your life, because poor sleep at this stage doesn't just make you tired, it accelerates memory decline. It speeds up muscle loss. It worsens insulin resistance. And most dangerously, it increases the risk of falls, the kind that steal independence overnight. This isn't about comfort, it's about preservation. Now, another physician I respect, Dr. Andrew Weil, has said something that most people overlook. True rest does not come from sedation. It comes from activating the body's relaxation response. In other words, the goal is not to knock the brain out. The goal is to make the body feel safe enough to let go. And that distinction changes everything. Tonight, I'm going to show you how a very simple, warm, honey-based mix, when used correctly at the right time and for the right reason, can help restore deep sleep signaling without overriding your brain or confusing your hormones. This is not a sleeping pill, this is not a sedative, and it works better as we age, not worse. We're going to walk through 4 critical insights together. Each one builds on the last. And the final one explains why this gentle approach works better after 60 than hormone pills ever could. If you've been waking up too early, if melatonin used to work but doesn't anymore, or if you're tired of feeling drugged instead of rested, stay with me. There is a belief that quietly settles in over time. If a little melatonin helps, more must help more. That idea sounds reasonable. It feels logical, and for a short while it even appears to work. But the aging brain plays by different rules. After 60, the brain does not stop producing melatonin. What changes is when it is released and how long it stays active. Production shifts earlier in the evening and clearance happens faster. The hormone rises, peaks and disappears sooner than it once did. When supplemental melatonin is added late at night or in doses that are higher than the body expects, the timing signal becomes distorted. Instead of guiding sleep, it scrambles it. This is where many people get confused. They fall asleep quickly. That part feels like success, but the night doesn't hold. Sleep becomes thin. The early morning hours feel restless. The eyes open long before the body is ready to rise, and returning to deep sleep becomes almost impossible. It feels like the brain forgot how to finish the night. The simplest way to understand this is with a clock, not a pill. Melatonin is not a sleeping drug. It is a timing hormone. Its job is to tell the brain when night has arrived, not to keep you asleep indefinitely. Taking it in the wrong window, or in amounts that overwhelm the system, is like setting an alarm clock to fall asleep. The body responds at first, but the internal rhythm loses trust in the signal. Over time, the brain adapts by turning down its own natural production, not out of failure, but out of self-protection. This is why some people notice vivid dreams that feel unsettling. Others feel groggy in the morning, as if the brain never fully reset, and many experience the same pattern again and again. Fast sleep onset, followed by premature waking. The night ends too early, even when the room is still dark. Nothing is broken here. The system is simply out of sync. The tragedy is that this pattern is often mistaken for worsening insomnia, when in reality it is a timing issue layered on top of aging physiology. The body is not asking for stronger signals. It is asking for clearer ones. And once this distinction is understood, the next piece of the puzzle begins to make sense. If understanding your sleep feels clearer than anything you've been told before, Subscribe here. This channel exists to explain what aging bodies are really asking for: calm, timing, and truth. There is another force at work during the night that rarely gets mentioned in conversations about sleep. It has nothing to do with willpower, nothing to do with discipline, and very little to do with hormones alone. After 60, the body becomes more sensitive to fluctuations in blood sugar, especially during the long fasting hours of sleep. The liver, which acts as the body's overnight fuel reserve, does not store or release energy as smoothly as it once did. When blood sugar dips too low in the middle of the night, the brain interprets this as danger, not symbolic danger, biological danger. In response, the nervous system releases cortisol and adrenaline. These are not stress hormones in the emotional sense. They are emergency signals designed to keep the brain alive. The heart rate increases, the mind snaps awake, thoughts begin to race, often without any clear reason, and the body shifts instantly from rest into alertness. This is why awakenings at the same hour each night feel so abrupt. There is no gradual drifting toward consciousness. There is a jolt. The body is not anxious. It is protective. Think of it like a smoke alarm going off in the middle of the night. The alarm is loud not because the house is on fire, but because the system is designed to wake you before danger becomes visible. In the same way, nighttime blood sugar drops activate the brain long before conscious hunger is felt. Many people describe this as waking up with a busy mind. Others feel their heart pounding. Some feel wide awake but strangely calm, unable to return to sleep despite exhaustion. The timing is often consistent: 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 in the morning. This pattern is frequently misinterpreted as psychological or emotional, when in reality it is metabolic and neurological. The brain is doing its job. When sleep is interrupted this way, deep restorative stages are shortened. Muscles recover more slowly. Memory consolidation weakens. The immune system loses efficiency, and the next day begins with fatigue that no amount of effort seems to overcome. The important thing to understand is that this has nothing to do with weakness. It is the predictable result of an aging energy system trying to protect itself during the most vulnerable hours of the night. And once this mechanism is recognized, the role of warmth and gentle nourishment begins to come into focus. For years, sweetness has been blamed for restless nights. Sugar became the villain. Sweetness became something to fear after sunset. And for many people, that belief hardened into certainty. But the aging body responds to small amounts of sweetness very differently than the younger one does. After 60, the liver plays a more delicate role during sleep. It is responsible for releasing just enough stored fuel to keep the brain stable through the night. When those reserves run thin, the nervous system reacts quickly, often with sudden awakenings. A small amount of honey changes that conversation, not as stimulation, not as indulgence, but as reassurance. Honey provides a gentle, steady source of glucose that supports liver glycogen through the early morning hours. When that fuel is available, the brain no longer needs to trigger cortisol or adrenaline to stay safe. The alarm stays silent. Warmth adds another layer to this signal. Warm liquids activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, digestion, and repair. Blood vessels soften. Muscle tension eases. The body shifts subtly out of vigilance and into restoration. This is not sedation. It is permission. The brain receives two messages at once. Energy is sufficient, and the environment is safe. Together, those signals create conditions where deep sleep is allowed to unfold naturally. Many people notice something important here. The sleep does not feel forced. There is no heaviness, no artificial fog. Instead, awakenings become fewer. And when waking does occur, returning to sleep feels easier, less tense. The night feels held rather than controlled. The best way to picture this is something simple and familiar. This combination works like tucking the brain in, not shutting it down, not overpowering it, but signaling that everything it needs has been taken care of. And when the brain believes that message, it stops scanning for threats. It rests. This is why the effect often feels subtle at first. Not dramatic, not immediate, but distinctly different from anything produced by a pill. And this subtlety is precisely why the final piece of this puzzle matters so much. There is a belief that has quietly shaped how sleep is treated in later life. The belief that rest must be induced, triggered, or chemically initiated. that without an external push, the aging brain simply will not let go. This idea did not come from how the body actually works. It came from urgency, from the desire for immediate results, from a system that values speed over rhythm. As the body grows older, sleep does not disappear. What changes is the way it is regulated. The architecture becomes more sensitive. Deep sleep depends more heavily on signals of safety, stability, and timing. Stress hormones rise faster. The nervous system reacts more quickly to internal fluctuations, and the vagus nerve, which helps slow the heart and quiet the mind, responds poorly to force. This is why sleep that is triggered artificially often feels incomplete. The brain may shut down quickly, but it does not stay in the deeper stages long enough. The night fragments. The early morning hours feel fragile, and waking comes with heaviness rather than clarity. The warm honey approach works because it speaks the body's native language. Instead of introducing a hormone from the outside, it supports the conditions that allow natural melatonin to be released on schedule. Natural melatonin rises gradually. It aligns with body temperature, digestion, and circadian timing. It does not rush the brain into sleep. It invites it. At the same time, the gentle support of liver glycogen reduces the need for emergency signals during the night. Cortisol no longer has to surge to protect the brain from perceived scarcity. Adrenaline stays quiet. The nervous system does not need to keep checking for danger. This creates a very different internal environment. The vagus nerve becomes more active, sending calming signals upward from the gut and chest. Heart rate slows naturally. Breathing deepens without effort. Muscle tension releases without conscious instruction. The body begins to behave as it did before sleep became a struggle. What many people notice is not dramatic sedation, but a sense of smoothness. Falling asleep feels unforced. Staying asleep feels easier. Waking during the night, if it happens at all, feels less urgent and less activating. Over several nights, the rhythm stabilizes. This gradual improvement is often misunderstood. In a culture trained to expect instant results, subtlety can feel like weakness. But in physiology, subtlety is strength. Systems that heal gently tend to heal more completely. This approach also respects the reality of aging. It does not demand that the body behave like it did at 40. It works with the sensitivities that develop after 60 rather than fighting them. Timing becomes more important than intensity. Signals matter more than substances. For those who have relied on melatonin for years, this method does not shock the system. It allows space for recalibration. The body is not pressured to perform or comply. It is given permission to re-establish its own rhythm. Sleep in this context is no longer something to chase. It becomes something that returns when the conditions are right. And that is why this works better for older adults. Not because it is stronger, but because it is truer to how the aging body actually rests. Sleep in later life has been misunderstood for far too long. It is often framed as something that weakens inevitably, as if rest itself has an expiration date. That idea creates fear, and fear pushes people toward stronger and stronger solutions. Yet the aging body does not respond well to force. It responds to clarity, reassurance, and timing. What truly changes after 60 is not the body's desire for sleep, but the language it uses to request it. Signals that were once loud and automatic become quieter. Rhythms that once corrected themselves now need gentler guidance. When those signals are ignored or overridden, the body grows alert instead of calm. Night becomes a period of vigilance rather than repair. This is why the philosophy of Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara feels so relevant today. He spent his life observing not just disease, but aging itself. He believed that health in later years depended less on aggressive intervention and more on cooperation with the body's natural design. In his view, healing could not be commanded. It could only be invited. He often spoke about rest as something that arrives when the body feels protected, not when it is pushed into submission, but when it senses safety at every level. Muscles soften, breathing slows. The nervous system steps out of alert mode. Only then does deep restoration begin. Modern sleep solutions rarely honor this principle. They focus on silencing symptoms rather than restoring communication. Sedation can quiet consciousness, but it does not always produce true rest. In fact, it can leave the body confused, unsure whether it is night or simply unconscious. The warm honey ritual represents a different understanding of sleep. It works not because it is powerful, but because it is familiar to the body. Warmth has always been associated with safety. Gentle nourishment has always signaled sufficiency. These cues are deeply wired into human physiology. When these signals are present, the nervous system no longer feels the need to remain on guard. Stress hormones recede naturally. The heart rate steadies. The brain releases its own sleep-timing hormones in a pattern that aligns with deep rest rather than shallow unconsciousness. This distinction matters more with age. As resilience changes, the body becomes less tolerant of abrupt chemical signals and more responsive to environmental and metabolic cues. Subtlety becomes an advantage. Quiet consistency becomes more effective than intensity. This is where the perspective of Dr. Andrew Weil aligns so closely. He has long emphasized that the relaxation response is not passive. It is an active biological state that restores balance across systems. When activated, digestion improves, inflammation calms, circulation becomes more efficient, and sleep deepens as a natural consequence. Good sleep after 60 is not an isolated benefit. It stabilizes gait and reduces the likelihood of falls. It sharpens memory and improves focus. It supports immune function and glucose regulation. It strengthens emotional resilience, making the days feel less reactive and more steady. Perhaps most importantly, it restores confidence. Poor sleep erodes trust in the body. Night after night of restlessness creates the belief that something essential has been lost. That belief can be more damaging than the sleep disruption itself. But the body does not forget how to rest. It adapts. It waits. When the right signals return consistently, the system responds. This approach is not about rejecting modern medicine or denying its value. It is about recognizing that aging requires a shift in strategy. What once worked through force now works better through cooperation. What once responded to stimulation now responds to reassurance. Deep sleep in later life is not reclaimed through stronger interventions, but through wiser ones. Through rhythms that align with biology rather than override it. Through signals that say enough, safe, and settled. When those signals are present, night becomes what it was always meant to be. A time when the body repairs quietly, when the brain sorts and restores, when waking comes with clarity instead of heaviness. Sleep does not disappear with age. It simply asks to be treated differently. And when it is, it often returns with a depth and steadiness that feels both familiar and sustaining.